Hi everybody, old guy here. No, this is not some furry snake. This is Circe, who likes to come up every once in a while and see what I'm doing. And no, not that Circe, that Circe. So while I was perusing my bookshelves a few weeks ago for books I'm proud to own, I perused this as part of that perusal and went, I haven't read that since I was about 12 or 13 years old. Wonder if it still holds up. So I read it again, and yes, definitely, it holds up, but not in the same way. I mean, what you'd expect. I mean, a 1966 Camaro strikes a different chord today than it did back then. So what is that different chord? Well, that this is a really good story hidden within a scary one. Now, in 1967 or 68, whenever I read it, this book scared the bejesus out of me. It was like The Blob or Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which were both relatively new concepts back then, you know, of aliens taking over your body or soul or, you know, absorbing you somehow. And that's what this book is about. Space spores containing a malevolent intelligence that take you over body snatcher style. These particular spores were buried under a Swiss glacier thousands of years ago, where a rather isolated bed and breakfast owned by an English couple happens to be, when the glacier has receded enough to reveal the spores to a vacationing English schoolboy who becomes their first victim, and who then marches through the other guests, turning them into spore things, as an inopportune blizzard cuts the B&B off from civilization. So, it's fight the spore people or become one yourself. Pretty scary stuff when you're 11 or 12 because you're just not a very sophisticated reader at that age. Which is why we have middle grade and YA categories for books, which back then we called kid or teenage books. The purpose for that, of course, is so adult angst and nuances don't deter budding readers. Because this book has lots of adult angst and nuances, all of which I missed back then and which made this time around a fresh read, even though I knew what was going to happen. Quite a delight to find levels you missed the first time, isn't it? You know, it's like going back to Baldur's Gate and discovering side missions that you missed. What Christopher did, and that I missed, is give each of the characters a fairly complicated backstory that is not apparent when they are first introduced, but which teases out as the spores advance their attacks. From the woman who abandoned her family to pursue what she thought was a better life, to the sad sack who is still carrying on an affair with a married woman that he knows is doomed, about 95% of the characters are in some kind of existential funk when the spores show up. So it's either shake off the funks or get eaten. Christopher is an excellent writer, and I can't recommend him enough, along with his literary twin, John Wyndham, both of whom wrote post-apocalyptic stories back when the subgenre was just warming up. And that's mostly when I read them both, in the 1960s, and it's been a bit of a refreshment to find out I may have missed half of the stories they crafted simply because I wasn't advanced enough to catch it. So I guess that means that they're both due for a reread. After I read everything else I need to read, of course. Old guy here. See you later.